Last time we got an idle, but it ended up sounding like this. I decided to roll it into the garage to properly fit the exhaust so I could hear what's going on. I don't know what I did, but this definitely isn't right. We start by removing the battery and the battery tray. Next we loosen the exhaust at the flanges.
Oh, whoops.
With the muffler out of the way, this is a good time to install the sway bar that we left off for the initial startup. This is held on by 2 bolts on each side, torqued to 22 foot-pounds. Now we remove the wideband and loosen the mid-pipe as well. This time, we're connecting the hangers first, and then connecting the exhaust. We tighten the mid-pipe flange, and then the muffler. Now we install the wideband and route the cable so it won't contact any of the hot surfaces from the exhaust. Next, we install the crash bar and torque it to 128 foot-pounds. With the crash bar in place, we can install the final exhaust hanger. There's not a great way of filming this, but we're using the same intake as before. We attach it to the throttle body and then tuck the filter down near the side vent for some fresh cool air. Cleaning this up will be a future project. Next, we clip in the license plate light wires and install the brake lights. Each brake light clips in and is held on by 2 screws. Now we install the battery and the battery tray. I opened the transmission fill to check the fluid level. Some came dripping out, so the level looks good for now. We also have 2 air conditioning lines not being used. These were just tucked away and zip tied for the time being. Next, we torque the axle nut to 159 foot-pounds and the lugs to 80 foot-pounds. With the car barely street legal, I took it on a drive to a gas station down the road. On my way back, it was running a bit lean throughout the whole rev range. I noticed the smell and looked behind me and realized my car did this strange thing where I filled it with gas and then it sprayed the gasoline all down the street. Congratulations to the 14% who guessed right. I turned the key to accessory mode to prime the pump and I could hear the gas dripping on the ground. Luckily, I got rescued by this handsome fella I know and I was able to start diagnosing the problem. It's tricky to film, but I disconnected the fuel line and then disassembled the fitting to inspect for damage. It seemed a little loose, so I may have grabbed the wrong part with a wrench when I was working back there. I got it tightened and reconnected it to the car. The car was still sounding weird while idling. I realized it was running on 3 cylinders and confirmed it because when I unplugged cylinder 2's coil pack, nothing changed. Notice, if I take one that is working and unplug it, there's an immediate change in the tone. This is a good time for some systematic troubleshooting. We know we need fuel and spark for the cylinder to do its job. For ignition, we have the spark plug, coil pack, and the 3 wires going to the coil. We're going to work backwards to try to find our issue, starting with the spark plugs. The easiest thing to do is swap the spark plug between the 2 cylinders to see if the problem follows it. So we remove the coil pack and the spark plug. The plug looks covered in fuel, so it looks like the cylinder is getting the fuel. Swap it with another spark plug, and it's still idling the same. We know it's not the spark plug, so we move on to swapping the coil pack with another cylinder and it's still the same issue. Another thing I did is take a spare spark plug and ground it to see if there's spark, which there wasn't. I repeated this with a different plug, but the same coil pack, and we had spark. Now we can remove the coil pack from the list of suspects. Next thing we have to look at is the 3 wires going to the coil pack. First thing we do is probe each pin with the ground. This tells us if it's properly grounded, which it is since the resistance is 0. Now we check the power and the signal pins to see if the resistance match up with the same pins from other cylinders, which they do. This tells us that these wires aren't shorting anywhere. Next, we turn the key into accessory mode and see if the coil pack is getting the same voltage as the other cylinders. In this case, they all seem to be getting about 12 volts. So now we can assume that the ground is good and that the correct power is being supplied. We're approaching scary territory. The last thing is the wire that sends the signal to the coil. The first check we can do is to test for continuity or if the wire is damaged. We do this by probing the pin at the coil pack and the pin at the ECU. We should see a resistance near 0 if the wire is okay. Open loop means the wire is broken. So I attached a wire to the terminal at the coil pack, ran it to my ECU where my multimeter can reach, stuck a probe into the terminal at the ECU, and the other probe goes to the end of the wire we ran, and we see 0, which means the wire is okay. Also, during all this, my car decided to piss itself all over my garage, which turned out to be because of a spring clip that rusted off of a power steering line. Anyways, at this point it seems we're screwed. It's something in the ECU. Well, that assumes someone competent was working on this car. There's one more component to check, which is the actual plug going into the ECU. When I removed it, I noticed it didn't seem like it was fully seated, so I plugged it back in, and we got a good idle. Air-fuel ratio and all. So it's back to the garage so we can finish putting it back together. First we attach the exhaust heat shield held on by 4 bolts. Next we install the rear bumper. This is the first time I had all the hardware and not zip ties to hold the bumper. Even the exhaust fits pretty well too. I've been driving it around, slowly giving it a shakedown, and it's still mind-blowing that it actually works. I was gonna celebrate with a standing burnout, but it turns out I don't really know how to do one. So there's still improvements to be made. Next time, we'll do some deep cleaning. Thanks for watching.